this movie is great. Like, movies like this are why I started doing this channel. They're those little gems that are just lying in wait, ready to be uncovered in the horror catalogs of like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Stan. Like, I watch a lot of trash for this channel. Like, I sort through the trash to present you with the treasure. That is what this channel does. And this grimy, creepy little piece of treasure is all the way from Mexico, and I loved it. Another amazing thing about this movie is that it's highly accessible. It is on Netflix in like 70 different countries. So it's not that crazy for this one, but going forward, I'm going to start putting where to find each movie that I cover in the channel description for my key demographics, just so it's easy for you guys to find it. So that information will all be in the description. Disappear Completely premiered at Fantastic Fest in 2022, but was only added to Netflix about a month ago. And the algorithm obviously works because Netflix pushed it in front of me and started auto-playing the trailer as it does. And as soon as I watched it, I thought, that's my night sorted. I turned off the lights, I grabbed a safety blanket, as is my custom, and I settled in for the night. And I'm so glad I did. Like, screenwriter Ricardo Aguado Fentanes and Luis Javier Henaine have done something special here, and I'm all about it. I am all about this movie. In Disappear Completely, we follow an absolute worm of a human called Santiago Mendoza. Santiago is a photographer, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, Jake, he's just like, what does being a photographer have to do with the fact that this guy's a worm? Well, dear viewer, Santiago makes his living bribing police officers so that he can have access to crime scenes before anyone else, so that he can take photos of the carnage, like dead bodies, accidents, car crashes, and then selling it to sleazy tabloids in Mexico. So, like, this guy's a fucking bottom feeder. He's the worst. I have seen characters be morally flexible before, but this dude's morals are like a fucking yoga instructor. Like, they are bendy as hell. But despite being the worst person, he has managed to land a lovely sweetie pie of a girlfriend, Marcella, who's a nurse. And he even has this adorable dog named Zombie. Great name for a dog. Like, Zombie has shot to the top of my pet naming list. I love it. And one day after Santiago is investigating, read that as interfering with, a crime scene involving a senator, he realizes that he has become the victim of a mysterious condition that is accelerating in severity and spookiness. Like, you're like, is it supernatural? Is it mental? As we watch Santiago, like, spiral and try to work out what the hell's going on with him, he is basically racing his worsening condition, and you get to go and ask, is it mental illness? Is it a spirit? Is it a demon? Is it witchcraft? Is it zombie? Will Marcella be better off without this fucking worm? She let's be honest, she would be. This movie is just a lot of great, creepy fun, and I really, really enjoyed it. Like, this movie completely follows the story as it unravels from Santiago's point of view. And it's such a clever choice, because if you weren't put in his shoes successfully, you would hate him. Like, you would hate Santiago. He's not a good guy. He's not a great dude. Like, he barely has any redeeming qualities. The fact that he's sort of nice to his dog, I guess. But the fear and suffering that is being caused to him by this condition is so weird and awful that you can't help but sympathize. That is a huge feat of writing. And it's a massive swing to take a completely unlikable character and then shoot the entire film from their perspective. It's really clever, and I think it's the only way that this movie would work. It's like, you root for Santiago even though he's not great, and that's also because of Harold Torres' acting ability. He just conveys how desperate Santiago is because of this insurmountable condition. Like, everything's getting worse, everything's going from bad to worse, and he's struggling. And even though you don't really like Santiago, you can't help but sympathize for him. Like, it's that sort of thing where it's like, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. That is what is happening here. Also, the director Luis Javier Henaine nailed how to use camera and sound as a story mechanic, not just a way to capture the story, right? Like, it is a story device in this. It's like when you play a good PS5 game and they use the touchpad in a way that actually adds to the game. It's so satisfying, and that's what they've done here, right? Like, there's a cinematic sleight of hand that happens in the last, like, probably quarter of this movie that's really clever, and it's so ballsy because if not done well, it could be really annoying, but they nail it here, and it just sucked me in. There's a lot of time spent in red light developing film or watching Santiago play with the compositions of the photos he's taken, and I love that as a horror trope. I loved it in the 2008 film Shutter, like, it's in Sinister. I love it. I love it when movies do that. And the way this movie is shot actually gave me David Fincher vibes. Like, it's very Seven, it's very Zodiac, which are two films I absolutely adore. And this movie was even shot using a 3:2 aspect ratio as a nod to, like, newspaper photography. And it's just clever. It's just it's really well done. Like, technically, this film is so clever. It uses the way things are shot and the way things sound to tell you, like, these are main parts of the story. The way this sounds is a part of the story. The way this is shot is a nod to the story. Like, they are a part of the story. They're not just ways to capture the story. It's fucking great. I can see the ending leaving a lot of people upset, as it's not like a clear and definitive, everything's wrapped up in a bow. But given all the dread and build up in this film, I thought it was really quite poetic in a Twilight Zone sort of way, especially given Santiago's choices throughout the film. Like, there's definitely some really intense scenes in this movie, and there's some really good body horror, but I wouldn't classify this as, like, a really scary film. Like, this is probably more creepy than it is scary. Those two things being said, it's great. This movie's great. I really, really, really like this film. It's definitely worth your time, and I'm stoked to be able to share it with you guys. I hope people see it, because I don't think enough people are getting their eyeballs on this film, and it deserves it. I recommend watching this film if you love horror mysteries. The Ring, Shutter from 2008, not Shutter Island, Shutter. If you like movies that take an unlikable character and make them empathetic, there's a few that do it. Like, Sinister's one of them that does it quite well. I mean, Ethan Hawke's character in Sinister's not as bad as this, but Nightcrawler's another one. If you love when true crime and the supernatural merge in a film, this is great for that. This is, like, peak that. I don't recommend watching this if self-harm or injury to animals is a problem for you. Stay away from this one. Big trigger warning. If you want a horror film that ties everything up in a neat little bow, also don't go in. This doesn't have finality. I can see a lot of people being like, well, there's no real, like, full stop on this film. I think that fits the film perfectly, but I know that some people struggle with that. If you struggle with subtitles, don't go in. This is best enjoyed in the Spanish language. It's with subtitles. It's fucking good. It's a really, really good film. The movie it's a great little addition. Like, well done, Netflix, for picking up this little horror gem. Like, I love it when these little random little pieces get added to Netflix and you're like, holy shit, that was good. You know, it's awesome. I love it when I come across a director doing something interesting with horror. So I'm definitely going to watch Luis's next films. I'm actually probably going to look at his back catalogue and see if there's any good horror gems in there. Like, I'm hoping he does a lot of horror. I'm hoping he's known for horror. I didn't know him before, but I'm fucking interested now. If you like this film, this is an easy recommend. This is an easy week for recommendations. If you like this film, Nightcrawler. Check out Nightcrawler if you haven't, with Jake Gyllenhaal. It has a similar premise to this movie. It's more true crime than supernatural, but Jake Gyllenhaal plays a fucking scumbag, and it's great. It's really good. It's about an ambulance chaser, a guy who basically follows ambulances and cops to accident and crime scenes and takes photos. He's just a real weasel. Another one to check out if you're a supernatural mystery hound is 2020's The Empty Man. It's like a supernatural folklore mystery, and it was directed by David Pryor, who worked under David Fincher for a lot of years. I think he did a David Fincher documentary even. So he used a lot of the same cinematography techniques, just like Luis does in this one. It's really, really good. I really like this movie, guys. It is definitely worth your time. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next week for another review. Peace.